You are a consciousness that still exists in what you may want to call the non-physical realm, in that non-physical existence from which this physical part of you has come. So there is a possibility, in fact a strong one for most humans, of in some moments, or even in a lot of moments, of you being a separate vibrational frequency, or a better word is a different vibrational frequency, or a better word is a more resistant vibrational frequency than that of your inner being. And what we mean by that is your inner being is pure positive energy. It is love energy only. It's pure positive energy. It's life energy only. It's well-being energy only. Clarity energy only. And so sometimes, not really apart from your intention when you decided to come into this physical body, you choose to focus upon something in a way, and sometimes the choice doesn't seem all that conscious to you. It's a sort of knee-jerk reaction, or maybe even a learned behavior. But sometimes your perception of life in some moment, about some subject, about some experience, is different enough from the perspective of your inner being that you can feel that separation. Now, separation is too strong a word, but you can feel the difference between you and who you really, really are. So our work, as we've been communicating with you through Esther in this way, is really about you wanting to know who you really are, how you fit into all of this, why you've come into this physical body, and what you're really about once you get here. And we're here to remind you that you came for the glorious experience of conscious expansion. You came for that satisfying conscious expansion. Now, you're going to expand anyway, because you just cannot bang around in your physical body with other people, with other experiences, without coming to awarenesses about what you prefer. And when that happens, a resource of non-physical energy begins flowing that sometimes you're not even aware is happening. All kinds of things are coming in support of what you are giving your attention to. And all of this energy flow, both what you receive and then redirect, no matter where you're receiving it from, whether you are receiving it from your connection to your source energy, or whether you're receiving it from something that you're observing. Maybe somebody having a hard time in their physical body is up close to you, and their complaints have gotten to you enough that you're perceiving them as they believe themselves to be, rather than you perceiving them as your inner being knows them to be. So sometimes, by virtue of what you're living, you find a way or a moment in time of perceiving something, some experience, that causes a vibrational resistance within you. And when that happens, you feel negative emotion. So what we're really saying to you is that in any moment when there is any negative emotion happening within you, it always means that your perception is different from the perception of your source. Now, perception is such an interesting thing, and it's a word that Esther has found that as we listen to you, as you receive her word for what we are vibrationally offering to her, it's the best word. It's the best word for explaining to you that you, in your conscious awareness, in other words, when you are awake, are always in a state of some perception. By perception, we mean what you are seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and touching. Certainly, we mean that kind of perception, but we also mean what you think about whatever's going on, how you perceive it, how you believe it, how you expect it. In other words, what you're noticing and how you feel about it. So what you're noticing and how you feel about it is what includes the non-physical part of you, because the how you feel about it part is how you know whether you feel about it in the way that your inner being feels about it. You see what we're getting at? And whenever you're feeling negative emotion, you can know for sure this very certain thing. In the presence of negative emotion, your inner being has a different perspective than you do, a different perception than you do. Your perception is such an interesting thing, not just yours, but everybody else's. And not just yours about you, but yours about everybody you know. Your perceptions, doesn't really matter how you've come to them. Sometimes they've been inspired to you from the source within you. Sometimes they've been taught to you or hammered to you by teachers or peers or parents or friends. Sometimes you've witnessed experiences, and so you've come to conclusions. But what we want to ask you to ask of yourselves in the immediate days that follow this gathering is that when you are in a particular potent moment of perception, which means when you feel strong emotion, either positive or negative, that you stop and ask yourself to contemplate what you're perceiving and see if you can feel how your inner being is perceiving this moment in time. So we're just going to say it to you right out loud in really blunt and forthright terms. So much of what you perceive is bogus. And a lot of it, what you perceive about yourself. And a lot of what you perceive about the people around you. You misunderstand a lot of things. You jump to a whole lot of conclusions. A whole lot of conclusions that do not serve you. Now, did you notice we didn't say a whole lot of conclusions that are wrong? We mean a whole lot of conclusions that don't serve you, because what you perceive is valid, because you created yourself into that perception. And this moment in time that you're perceiving is a manifested moment. How many little pieces of things do you hear? How much do you decide is the way something is just by your brief glimpse into it? How much of what you believe was because somebody that you trusted believed it, and they told it to you often enough that it became the story that you told? You know your point of attraction is something that is under construction all the time. And so you stand with these beliefs, with these perceptions about things. And those perceptions are attracting all kinds of experiences that reflect. So if you think, just because right now you don't have a lot of money, that you're incapable or unworthy of it, that's circumstantial evidence maybe that you've picked up along your physical trail that is not valid. It doesn't have anything to do with your ability or capacity to attract right here and now, unless you keep that belief active within you. And if it is active within you, then the circumstances of your life keep reflecting it in ways that make it keep seeming true. When you stood before Jesus dripping your illness, he did not see your illness. He did not let you convince him of your lack of well-being. He knew, he was secure in the knowing of who you really are. And in that absolute, non-diluted, non-resisted knowing, he was able to dominate the vibrational frequency that surrounded you so that your illness could not be at the same time of that knowing. As a sort of odd comparison we're going to give you here, but it's like Esther remembers being in a van with a CB radio, and when they drove through this one particular neighborhood, they couldn't transmit to the other vans that were traveling with them because there was a man who lived there that had a big tower on his house, and he was broadcasting with such a powerful frequency that he kept everyone else from being able to talk to each other. That's what Jesus did, just for a moment. He broadcasted with such a powerful frequency that it dominated, and if you were anywhere near the vicinity of that, then you couldn't hold your misunderstanding of things. For just that time of that knowing, that's what influence is, you see. And so we want you to think about the influence that your inner being, that your source energy is broadcasting to you. It's a powerful influence, but over time, you've practiced enough erosion of thought, enough misunderstanding of who you are, enough misunderstanding of who others are, enough nitpicking of each other. In your ill-advised, we'll be stronger. Completely misunderstood, we'll be stronger. Ridiculous, in your absolute ridiculous belief that you can control or that you need to control, and that you can control the conditions or the behaviors of others around you in order for you to live in well-being. You've come to believe in something that defies all of the laws of the universe. You've come to believe in the power of pushing something away, the power of exclusion, when in this universe there is only the power of attraction. There's only the power of inclusion, and what you give your attention to, you include in your vibration. So every time you attempt to right the wrongs of the world by defining the perpetrator of the wrongdoing and pushing against them, all that happens to you is that you practice the activation of a vibration. And you know, when you practice the activation of a vibration, that's what a belief is. A belief is only a thought that you continue to think. So as you practice these thoughts, as you continue to think these thoughts, as you continue to make those vibrations feel normal, and law of attraction helps you too, because once you believe it, law of attraction will show it to you, and show it to you, and show it to you, and show it to you. Because you get what you think about, whether you want it or not. Because law of attraction is responding to your thought. Yeah. You've heard all of that. You've heard of all of that a lot. You've heard of a lot from us and others. But what if you understood today that there is within you a perception, a part of you, a non-physical part of you, who is never dissuaded by circumstantial evidence, who is never believing that controlling conditions is the answer for you, who holds you in knowing of your power and your ability and your goodness. And what if you started deliberately tuning more to that frequency, reaching more for that vibration, so that you're standing in that kind of clarity and knowing? What if you, with a little bit of practice, and it's far less than you would imagine, far less than it takes you to learn a computer program, what if you accomplished vibrational alignment with that perspective? And what if that influence was you? So we're going to open this to talk about whatever you want to talk about, but we just wanted to begin with you thinking a bit about you being under the influence, because you always are under the influence of something. And the question is, are you in the receiving mode and therefore under the influence of who you really are and what you really want and what your inner being really knows? Or are you under the influence of a bunch of circumstantial events that happened randomly through your life, and do you really believe the ridiculous conclusion that you cut those trees down?